The West, it calls to us, doesn't it? The wide open spaces, the howl of the wind across the plains, the sun beating down on your back. It's a picture that's been painted in our minds since we were kids, fed by stories and movies and dreams. But how much of it is true? How much is Hollywood glitter and how much is real grit? The truth is, the Wild West was a wild place, lawless, unforgiving, a crucible where men and women were tested. It was a time of immense hardship, but also of great opportunity. People went west looking for something. Some were running from something, some were chasing something. Gold, land, a fresh start. The West held the promise of all of these. But it wasn't a place for the faint of heart. Life on the frontier was hard. The land was harsh. The dangers were real. To survive, you needed grit. You needed resilience. And sometimes you needed luck. It was a time when legends were made and lost just as quickly. This is the story of the real Wild West. The cowboy, the American icon. He rides tall in our imagination, doesn't he? A lone figure silhouetted against the setting sun. He's the strong, silent type. A man of few words, but quick with a gun. But the real cowboy, well, he was a little different. He wasn't always so glamorous. A lot of the time, he was just a young man barely out of his teens working for low wages. He spent his days covered in dust and sweat, herding cattle across vast distances. It was hard, dirty work. And it wasn't always as exciting as the movies make it seem. Sure, there were gunfights and cattle rustlers, but most days were filled with the mundane tasks of keeping the herd moving, mending fences, eating beans around a campfire, and dreaming of the day when they could hang up their spurs and settle down. The cowboy was a product of his time, shaped by the harsh realities of life on the frontier. He was tough, resourceful, and independent. He had to be to survive. He was a symbol of the American spirit, of hard work, determination, and the courage to face whatever challenges came his way. But this land, this West that called to so many, it wasn't empty. It was already home to a people who'd lived there for centuries, for millennia, the Native Americans. They were as diverse as the land itself, with different tribes, languages, and traditions. They were hunters, farmers, warriors, and storytellers. They lived in harmony with nature, respecting the delicate balance of the land. Their connection to the earth was deep, spiritual. It was their lifeblood. Then came the white man, and with him came conflict. The settlers wanted land, they wanted resources, and they saw no place for the Native Americans in their vision of the West. Treaties were broken, land was stolen, and the Native Americans were forced onto reservations, their way of life shattered. It's a dark chapter in American history, a story of greed, betrayal, and cultural genocide. The Native Americans were the ones who truly understood the West, who knew how to live in harmony with its rhythms and its dangers, and yet they were the ones who were pushed aside, disrespected, and almost destroyed. Cowboys and Indians, a clash of cultures. The movies love to pit cowboys and Indians against each other, don't they? The cowboys in their white hats, the Indians in their feathered headdresses. It's a classic battle between good and evil, but the truth, as always, is more complicated. There were times when cowboys and Indians clashed, that's for sure. They were fighting for the same land, the same resources, and those fights could be brutal. But there were also times when they lived in peace. They traded with each other, they learned from each other, they even fought alongside each other. The truth is, the relationship between cowboys and Indians was complex. It was shaped by circumstance, by necessity, and by the actions of individuals on both sides. There was conflict, yes, but there was also cooperation, understanding, and even at times a grudging respect. It's important to remember that, to see beyond the stereotypes and the myths, to understand that history is rarely black and white, it's usually shades of gray. The legacy of the West fact fiction and the enduring appeal of the frontier. The Wild West, it's gone now, faded into the history books. But its legacy lives on, in our stories, in our songs, in our national identity. The West represents something in the American psyche, doesn't it? The spirit of adventure, the yearning for freedom, the belief that anything is possible. It's a powerful myth, and like all myths, it contains both truth and fiction. The West wasn't always a romantic place. It was a place of hardship and violence, of broken dreams and shattered lives. But it was also a place of opportunity, of second chances, of the chance to reinvent yourself and build a new life. It's that duality that continues to fascinate us. The tension between the myth and the reality. The Wild West may be gone, but its spirit lives on. In our hearts, in our imaginations, and in the vast open spaces of the American West.